Hey y'all, I'm talking today about the CD of the month. This month's CD was Kendrick Lamar's album To Pimp a Butterfly, which came out in 2015. Rolling into the first track, Wesley's Theory. This album is about Kendrick's gripes with the music industry, and it starts off strong in Wesley's Theory. It starts off with a metaphor of a caterpillar in a cocoon, which we'll get into a little more later. Kendrick Lamar compares the music industry to a woman, how at first he did love her, but now he wants to use her for his own pleasure and needs, which sounds a little womanizing, but Kendrick will explain his point of view in a later song a little bit more. He talks a little bit more about how he burnt all his bridges for a paycheck. The first verse summarizes the message pretty well. When I get signed, homie, I'm act a fool. He talks about how the music industry uses the voices of the black people, gives them life-changing money, but he said it himself, you never pass economics in school. The industry goads them to spending exorbitant amounts of money in the economy, which is circling back into Uncle Sam's pockets. Buy 40 acres and a mule. Spend until you feel like the wrongs done on your ancestors feel like it's been reparated. I think that's what he's going for. And I think Dre reinforces my theory and my thoughts there. Dr. Dre says, remember the first time you came out to the house? Dre reinforces my theory by saying, remember the first time you came out to the house? You said you wanted a spot like mine, but remember, anybody can get it. The hard part is keeping it. The second verse is Uncle Sam enabling Kendrick and black artists to buy whatever they want and spend their money without tracking it. So Uncle Sam, who claims to be your dog, can swoop back in and send the tax man after you. The song ends with tax man coming. Great googly moogly. This song is where the album made my monkey brain start firing off neurons. The jazz. I'm always a sucker for a good saxophone. Fanboying aside, the song continues the narrative of the music industry being portrayed as a woman. In this case, Kendrick starts the introduction with Darlene Tibbs, who portrays an incredibly demanding woman, to say the least, insulting him the moment he starts to get off of his A game and moving on from him the second he's not making money for her, and it leads to Kendrick realizing this ain't free. Kendrick realizes the industry is using him and feeding him their scraps. Celery telling me green is all I need. The people who have it all are telling him what he needs. It's like how fit people like me tell you looks don't matter, or rich people tell you money doesn't matter, and it offends him, rightly so. I need 40 acres and a mule, not 40 ounces in a pit bull. It's Kendrick saying he wants what was promised to him and his people, not what their state is right now. For my European haters, first off, I'm still standing on business. For those who didn't know, weren't familiar with American history, 40 acres and a mule is what was promised to slaves after the abolition. It was in order for them to help rebuild their lives, but was never given to them. We'll circle a little more back into that in the Blackers Berry. Then he talks about how gooning and that kind of material that comes with it is used to suppress him and keep him complacent. Matter of fact, see our friendship based on business. Kendrick is fully realizing that the music industry only wants him because he's profitable, and ends it with, oh America, you bad bitch. I picked cotton and made you rich. Now my came free. In King Kunta, Kendrick comes out swinging after for free with, I got a bone to pick. He now feels like he runs the game and holds the yams. What's the yams? He holds the power right now in his eyes. Kendrick Lamar names this song after Kunta Kinte, which I had to do a little bit of research on to learn about his story. Kunta Kinte is a man who was kidnapped and sold into slavery. He refused the slave name of Toby and attempted to escape 4 times. The slave owners cut off his right foot as a punishment. It's a tragic story about slavery that many African Americans have found inspiring. I encourage you to go do a little bit of your own research if you're interested. But circling back, Kendrick calls himself King Kunta. I think it's an analogy from him trying to escape the industry and slavery of Uncle Sam, per se. He lays it out in the chorus with, to where you and I was walking. Now I run the game, got the whole world talking King Kunta, everybody want to cut the legs off him. Kunta, black man taking no loss. Oh yeah. Verse 1, he airs out his grievances with his fellow rappers. He talks about how they're employing ghostwriters. Milo, you're biting. He talks about how they're employing ghostwriters, and he'd rather be broke than brown nosing for gold. He just really bubbly today. Milo just really snuggly. Hey, don't eat the mic. You're supposed to speak into it. Alright. Verse 2, he's talking about how the yams brought it out of Richard Pryor and manipulated Bill Clinton with desire. Remember, he's talking about power here. And the yams drove him to almost go home, look at his enemy and say. You can read or listen to verse 3, but I wanted to highlight what I found important was at the end of the verse. Straight from the bottom is the belly of the beast. From a peasant to a prince to a king. At the end of this song, we see Kendrick's getting wrapped up in the industry he knows is using him. Institutionalized starts with Kendrick Lamar talking about how he's self-aware that he's been institutionalized. The definition of institutionalized means to be created or controlled by an established organization. The interlude with Anna Wise and Bilal I think reflects Kendrick's dreams. He wants to be the most powerful man in America. He wants to be free. Master, take the chains off me. The first verse talks about the friends Kendrick brought up with him. They adore him and he gave them the world. But because of his loyalty, they're mistaking his kindness for weakness. And they start thinking about robbing people at the BET Awards. Don't change until you get up and wipe your ass. I think that's some pretty wise words from Kendrick's grandma, saying that the bad situation you're in won't change until you do the work to get out of it and clean it up. The bridge done by Snoop Dogg continues the story. In the second verse, it seems like Kendrick confronts his friends and then they try to defend his actions. He's not running with good company right now. They're obsessed with robbing the rich people around them because it's justified in their eyes, but they see the exorbitant life that the people around Kendrick are living and think if they can steal from them, they can have a little piece of that. Snoop said it best. You can take your boy out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the homie. I think it's a play on words here, referring to Good Kid, Mad City. Kendrick was fortunate enough to get out the path he was heading down when he was 17. His friends marinated in the hood too long and don't see the world any other way but how they did when they were still back in Compton. These Walls is a song about getting freaky in the captain's quarters. I think it risks being treated like swimming pools in the sense that everyone thinks it's a good song and forgets the message. I remember you was conflicted, misusing your power. Sometimes I did the same. The song is about Kendrick sleeping with the woman who shot his friend in Good Kid, Mad City for revenge. He's misusing his power because of the pain he felt. He wants to inflict the pain onto the people who hurt him and took his friend from him. And the evil that's festering inside of him is beginning to eat him up alive, and he expounds on his poem a little more in the end. Abusing my power full of resentment. Resentment that turned into a deep depression. Found myself screaming in a hotel room. You might be my favorite song of the track easily. To Pimp a Butterfly was an album where Kendrick becomes more vulnerable and talks about his struggles with the fame and power he's now surrounded with. You picks up after These Walls, where Kendrick reveals he's torn up with survivor's guilt. He starts it off by insulting him and blaming himself for everything that's going wrong and everything that's happening. The money isn't making the problems go away, it's only making him feel worse. He has millions and spoken in front of hundreds of thousands of people, but he failed to reach his sister. He despises himself, constantly repeating to himself, loving you is complicated. The second part of the song brings in some context where Kendrick's hitting a low point. Housekeeping's trying to enter the hotel room and he's terribly drunk and depressed. He's not only racked by survivor's guilt from his friend who died in Good Kid, Mad City. We learned that a friend who was like a brother to Kendrick got shot. He up and left his friends and family behind in Compton. He could only be bothered to FaceTime his friend instead of rushing home to see him after he was hospitalized. His friend died after 3 surgeries and he couldn't be bothered to come home. We get to hear Kendrick's subconscious again. I draw a similarity to the swimming pools here, but this time instead of his subconscious trying to help him through his drunken stupor, it's absolutely racked with disgust and hurt. He knows he needs help. He wants to end it ultimately, but he feels disgusted with himself for all his actions. He feels like throwing up when he thinks about sleeping with that woman for revenge. His survivor's guilt feels insurmountable and he needs help. This hits home for me. After deployment, when I came home, nobody was there waiting for me on base. I still had to go and see everyone come home to their families. It was just me heading straight home to the barracks afterwards. I didn't choose to fly home afterwards either. I chose to lock myself in my room and basically drank until I felt better. It only drove a wedge into my relationships. It didn't get any better until I came home. I went home to the people that loved me no matter what, and that's what helped me. And for anyone finding yourself in a similar hole, I pray that you go home where the people love you and accept you for who you are and get some professional help through it. I wanted to end this section with a story we have in the military about a soldier stuck in a hole with no way out. He's freaking out. An NCO walks by and gives him a shovel, only making the problem worse. An officer walks by and tells him to dig faster, only making the problem worse again. He's freaking out and digging himself into this deeper hole, and all of a sudden a dirty soldier hops into the hole with him. He tells the dirty soldier, "What are you doing? Now we're both stuck here." And the soldier, big grin shows across his face, and he says, "Don't worry. I've been stuck in a hole like this before. We'll get out of this together. I know we'll get out, we'll be okay." All Right is a much needed lifeline we as the audience and Kendrick needed as the story progresses. It became the anthem of the protests during the riots and the civil unrest. If God got us, then we gonna be alright. Kendrick says he's drowning in his vices he used to cope. He knows that. He knows he's crazy, but he's gonna be okay. He's been hurt, been down before. Pride was looking at the world like, where do we go? He went to the preacher's door. Lucy is the unnamed woman we heard of earlier, and we learn is short for Lucifer, the devil, or the music industry in this context. Kendrick sees the evil. He chooses now to ignore what Lucy has to offer. He sees that no matter what he tries to give her, it isn't enough. And he found his way through this, was writing songs until he felt right with God. He uses his ability to make music as an escape and a way of healing for his survivor's guilt. He knows that loving himself is complicated, but he'll make it through. I didn't want to self-destruct. The evils of Lucy was all around me, so I went running for answers. We pick up For Sale with Lucy trying to seduce Kendrick. Kendrick went shopping and he can see the evils of Lucy trying to seduce him, saying that she made the woman of his past look like nothing. But Kendrick's thinking that hitching his trailer with Lucy will very much be his doom. Lucy is promising the world to him, money, power, moving his family out of Compton, the works. Lucy says she loosely hears prayers on his first album, but she's willing to ignore them because she knows all the things Kendrick desires are the things that Lucy has to offer, which should be a big red flag because Kendrick's faith was a quintessential part of Good Kid, Mad City. He chose to follow a higher calling because he found God, but Lucy wants his soul. Lucy wants him to sign the contract. This song reminds me a lot when Jesus was tempted in the wilderness. Satan was promising Jesus everything the world had to offer if Jesus would bow down to him. But Jesus remained strong in his beliefs. People debate on why Jesus was tempted. All things on heaven and earth belong to him after all. But in order to live the perfect life he did, he had to be tempted. Being tempted is a part of being a human. It's what you do in the face of temptation that will shape who you are and the legacy you leave behind. Jesus withstood the temptation and lived a perfect life. And Christians, including myself all over the world, see him as the greatest being to ever walk the earth and so much more. Until I came home. Mama goes into what I was talking about, how Kendrick needed to go home. He's thankful for all the riches, women, material goods that rap has brought him, but he praises God because most importantly, through his craft, rap brought him back home. The second verse, Kendrick goes talking about how he learned so much when he went out into the world. He knows everything about everything is what he says, but he realizes he didn't know anything until the day he came home. I know the price of life. I'm knowing how much it's worth. I know what I know, and I know it well not to ever forget, until I realized I didn't know until the day I came home. The third verse, Kendrick sees a kid who resembles himself before the fame, who can tell him the truth and what he needs to hear. He has the choice to follow his destiny, God's plan, or to follow his hell-bound race that he was on. And the truth for Kendrick was that he needed to come back home. But if I pick you destiny over rest in peace, then be an advocate, tell your homies, especially, to come back home. In Hood Politics, Kendrick talks about how he doesn't care about the politics in rap. He sees how it ends. He isn't getting his dead friends back, and he still keeps his work ethic to honor his dead friends. He tells the rest of the rappers in the industry, if you're gonna rap, you better mean it and perform like it because it means a lot to the people past and present. He then blows it up to a larger picture from Compton to Congress. The Democrats and Republicans are just gangs feeding the violence in the impoverished communities, calling them thugs after they themselves started the problem. We're being distracted by the media when there's real problems in the nation. We're prioritizing the wrong things. Kendrick says he has the power to mobilize the West Coast, if needed when the priorities fall too out of line. We've seen it now, post-Kendrick Drake rap beef, but that didn't stop my survivor's guilt, going back and forth, trying to convince myself the stripes I earned, or maybe how A1 my foundation was. But while my loved ones was fighting a continuous war back in the city, I was entering a new one. How Much a Dollar Costs is a parable about when Kendrick went to Africa. He stops his luxury car to get gas, and when he's on his way back, he runs into a homeless man who he assumes wants money to support his destructive habits. The man says temptation is something he defeated and he wants $1, nothing less, nothing more. Kendrick says he doesn't have it and slams his car door shut. It's a little odd because earlier Kendrick was having issues communicating with the local people, and now there's a man he's arguing with in clear English. Kendrick's about to storm off, but he can feel this man's gaze beaming at him, and then catches himself just staring back at the man. He then tries to justify to himself why he's not giving this man any money. The homeless man asks Kendrick if he ever read Exodus 14. Exodus 14 is about the story of the people of Israel escaping Egypt and God parting the Red Sea for them. There's talks about how God can harden Pharaoh's heart time and time again. That doesn't seem fair. Like, why is he doing that to Pharaoh? I once heard a priest explain it best. When God shines himself on your heart, it reveals your true nature. Either you soften your heart with joy to his will, or you harden it and grow bitter. Stay with me. Stay with me. This is relevant, trust me. Kendrick goes, oh, this guy's guilt tripping me with religion now. He hardens his heart and tells the man that selfishness is what made him the man he is today. He says he knows what kind of man he is. He can smell the booze off of his skin. The man says back to Kendrick, your potential is bittersweet. Kendrick says back to him, every nickel is mine to keep. And here's the bombshell. The man reveals he's Jesus. And he tells Kendrick how much $1 costs, the price of having a seat in heaven. It's because of Kendrick's greed, and Kendrick needs to embrace his loss. The song ends with Kendrick repenting after he realizes how foolish his greed is. Prince was supposed to be on this song. As a Minnesotan, I feel the need to mention how much we missed because he wasn't. Kendrick makes his message pretty clear on this one. Complexion doesn't mean a thing. Dark as the midnight hour or bright as the morning sun. He talks about how he used to find beauty in complexion. Beauty is what you make of it, not the color of your face. Whitney, his spouse, tells him, a woman is woman, love the creation. It all came from God, then you is my confirmation. Kendrick then says, I came to where you reside and looked around to see more sights for sore eyes. And that's the beauty there. Kendrick came home to a woman he loved, and he saw his family and the people he missed again. Rhapsody then comes out and talks about how beautiful it is to be a black person. It's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Instead, it's something to be proud of. Rhapsody says that all the earth-toned people are blessed. Kendrick ends this song with, I don't see Compton. I see so much worse. The land of the landmines. That's hell on earth. The Blacker the Berry is probably my second most favorite song of the album up until this point. All Right was the anthem of the protests. The Blacker the Berry is the emancipation of Kendrick, a real black man. He's really self-aware given the context leading up to this point. Lucy tempting him, Jesus calling out his greed. Kendrick comes out swinging with I'm the biggest hypocrite of 2015. He sees how Uncle Sam hates him and plans to terminate his culture. He sees the evil saying you sabotage my community, making a killing. I use the term Uncle Sam because that's the term he uses for the systematic oppression of the government earlier. Uncle Sam made him a killer. I said they treat me like a slave, call me black. Wolf, we feel a whole heap of pain, cause we black. And man, I say they put me in a chain, cause we black. Imagine now, big gold chain full of rocks. How you know see the whip left scars on me back. But now we have a big whip parked on the block. All them say we doomed from the start, cause we black. Remember this, every race start from the block. Just remember that. This verse from Assassin is just, you could just feel the heart and the soul and the pain in that. I just loved it. Verse 2, Kendrick talks about Uncle Sam just wants him to be a slave inside of the system. He doesn't fold though. And now that he's making a killing on his own, the system is jealous of his wisdom and money. Next verse, he's talking about the generational hatred formed against black people. He's really in your face about it, and I love it. He then draws parallels between the Zulu and Xhosa people. And I had to do some homework on this. Colonialism divided Zulu and Xhosa people of West Africa against each other. Compares it how the same game the governments used in 1820s with colonialism is being used now, but it has a different coat of paint. He enlightens us on why he thinks he's a hypocrite. He says he cried when Tavon Martin died, but at the same time, gang violence caused him to unalive someone blacker than him. But when you look at both things, I don't want to sound cliche, but it's Uncle Sam manipulating the oppression of black people in America. It causes them to turn against each other, and for people born into better situations to view them more negatively with prejudice or worse. You Ain't Gotta Lie to Kick It starts with Kendrick back home. His mom can read him like a book, and he says they can't help but laugh when they hear about him. They know who the real Kendrick is. Home knows the real version of you. You present yourself differently compared to a professional setting in the rest of the world. It's a little more of a laid-back song after The Blacker the Berry. It's a song about genuinely being yourself instead of trying to impress others. Coming home and asking questions to make yourself look cool. Dog, you're beginning to sound like the feds. And it's a big thing he mentions. You don't have to be the loudest in the room. Once your claim to fame is over and is past, the world might not respect you. Home's gonna be there for you, and home will accept you. Don't compare yourself to others, that won't do you any good. The rich act poor and the poor act rich. Just be yourself. This was my favorite song going into the album before I gave it a full listen, and it goes to show how well crafted this album is. It's a really good summary of the message of the album with, I done been through a whole lot. Trial, tribulation, but I know God. Devil wanna put me in a bow tie. Kendrick has a proud proclamation. I love myself. Dreams a reality piece. Blow steam in the face of the beast. Sky could fall down. Wind could cry now. Look at me, smile. I love myself. It's an uplifting anthem to hold your head up high. Recognize the opportunities life gave you. Love yourself. See the message. The depression's real, but there's so much more to life in your circumstances. A scuffle breaks out during Kendrick's performance, and he tells them to save it for the streets. This one's for the kids and the youth, to give them hope. He tells folks brawling that they don't have time for that. They gotta make time. The judge makes time for them. They have to use the little time they're given. He drops us some knowledge on how the N-word has been contorted by America to control black people. He gives them the real definition straight from Ethiopia. Negus. Definition: royalty, black emperor, king, ruler. It should be a word of proud heritage for black people, not the insult that's been conformed by Uncle Sam to degrade them. Kendrick charges his people. He assumes his role as their cultural leader, but he tells them to give him some grace for his mistakes and depression. He asks them to ask himself, when hits the fan, are you still a fan? Are you going to stand by him? Or are you going to turn like the culture did with Michael Jackson? Are you going to forget about him quickly like they did with MLK and JFK? He reminds them about how many leaders they have left for dead. Then we get the full poem. I remember you was conflicted, misusing your influence. Sometimes I did the same. Abusing my power full of resentment that turned into a deep depression. Found myself screaming in the hotel room. I didn't want to self-destruct. The evils of Lucy was all around me, so I went running for answers until I came home. But that didn't stop survivor's guilt, going back and forth trying to convince myself the stripes I earned, or how A1 my foundation was. But while my loved ones was fighting the continuous war back in the city, I was entering a new one. A war that was based on the apartheid and discrimination. Made me want to go back to the city and tell the homies what I learned. The word was respect. Just because you wore a different gang color than mine's doesn't mean I can't respect you as a black man. Forgetting all the pain and hurt we caused each other in these streets, I respect you. We unify and stop the enemy from killing us. Maybe, but I don't know. I'm no mortal man. Maybe I'm just another black man. This was a poem Kendrick wrote for Pac. Kendrick then shifts gears to a conversation with Pac, a West Coast legend he looked up to, and he's able to ask Pac how he's able to keep his sanity in his mind through it all. Pac says he kept it by his faith of God and his faith in the game, and he did it all the right way, working every job and working to eventually become the top dog. Kendrick then talks about how we live in rap. Rap is telling the stories of your dead friends living. Rap is storytelling. The caterpillar is a prisoner to the streets that conceived it. Its only job is to eat or consume everything around it. In order to protect itself from this mad city, while consuming its environment, the caterpillar begins to notice ways to survive. One thing it noticed is how much the world shuns him, but praises the butterfly. The butterfly represents the talent, the thoughtfulness, and the beauty within the caterpillar. But having a harsh outlook on life, the caterpillar sees the butterfly as weak, and it figures out a way to pimp it to its own benefits. Already surrounded by this mad city, the caterpillar goes to work on the cocoon, which institutionalizes him. He can no longer see past his own thoughts. He's trapped. When trapped inside these walls, certain ideas take root, such as going home and bringing back new concepts to this mad city. The result? Wings begin to emerge, breaking the cycle of feeling stagnant. Finally free, the butterfly sheds light on situations that the caterpillar never considered. Ending the internal struggle, although the butterfly and caterpillar are completely different, they are one and the same. We all have the potential to be a butterfly as caterpillars. We have it in us to shine our inner creative beauty. Uncle Sam and Lucy want that. But when it's all said and done, we need to be doing it for the right reasons. I know I've been rambling way too long now. It's been really fun for me to research something not school related. These are just my thoughts on the matter. Feel free to comment yours down below. I'm currently going through spring break, so I had a lot of free time to create something I'm really proud of. I'm a creative by nature, so I get a lot of joy seeing my creations come to fruition and showing it off to the world. I highly recommend you check out the album To Pimp a Butterfly yourself. 10 years later, it still has something for everyone. Drake was wrong when he said, Kendrick's songs will have women shivering their timbers in the club. With a dictionary. Nah, Kendrick got Marines reading encyclopedias. I've been entertaining my ears with some other great music as well throughout this month. I've also been listening to 10,000 Days by Tool. It's a really interesting album design. You gotta pick it up for yourself to take a look at it. I've been listening to the Minecraft OST while I'm working on class stuff. Human Clay by Creed's another great album, especially if you're trying to hype yourself up on a commute. And a little bit of Michael Bolton, some soul. GNX is still in my heavy rotation as always. And now I get to announce the next CD of the month. The CD of the month for April is Demon Days by Gorillaz. We're shifting away from rap a little bit next month. That's about it. I hope y'all enjoyed. Let me know what kind of music you'd like me to cover next. Until next time, make sure you tighten your lug nuts.